right. Let's see what we have going on here. All right, everybody. Welcome back to another live stream here. I received quite a few, both angry and non angry, DMs on Instagram about this previous video that I did, and primarily happy, primarily good messages, which I love. Thanks for the support. Love you guys. Link in description. Today, I wanted to go over legalizing marijuana. This is definitely a important topic, and I wanted to go through the actual numbers. So, what it means to um, actually legalize it, what it could potentially do for not only the hemp but the marijuana industry. If you guys aren't familiar with those two terms, basically, uh, hemp is 0.03%, I believe, 0.03% THC or lower. THC is the psychedelic piece that will actually make you feel nice and funky there. So the CBD slash THC is the differentiator. So I wanted to go over those 2 points because there are a lot of different things out there, a lot of different information, a lot of different, um, maybe over exaggerated, we could call it, ways of describing cannabis and what it means to legalize it from an economics perspective, and also a policy put forward by one of the candidates in 2020, and not necessarily bringing up politics again, but we do kind of default to that because we do have to fall into two buckets. Unfortunately, that's just the world we live in. And I wanted to talk about, from an econ perspective, what it means for legalization. And on average, rough numbers, in Q1 and 2 of this year, since California became recreational, they made, I believe it was $300 million in tax revenue. And I believe it was between 300 and 400 million in tax revenue. So that is less than something like a Colorado, but that is still substantially better than not having 300 or $400 million in revenue, in tax revenue for your state. So when I uh, when I was first diving into some of the research, oh, here we go. 355 million. The Democratic proposed spending plan Thursday. La, 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 la. Okay, so yeah, about 355 million, and it's doing quite well. So, in the proposal that I wanted to go over before I dive into the hemp versus uh, the marijuana debate there, I wanted to go over Yang's proposal here, as well as Biden, talk about his perspective, because I have read a little bit about his perspective on the matter, and I do find them to be completely different. So, marijuana is still considered a controlled substance by federal law. Thousands are in jail for marijuana related offenses, particularly people of color. We need to resolve the ambiguity and legalize marijuana at the federal level. This would improve safety, social equity, and generate tens of billions of dollars in new revenue based on legal cannabis businesses. So, this was what I wanted to do, was break down the just rough number. I know I'll probably get a lot of criticism for this, but taking California, splitting it in two, and calling that the average. Actually, let's split it in three, just because it is. I know Tim Draper argued that you should split it into six different small states because of the amount of, it would be like the second biggest economy in the world or something like that. Actually, no, that's completely false. But it would be a massive economy. California would be a massive economy, not the second biggest in the world, but it would be a massive economy on its own. So let's split it into, let's just follow his lead. So 355 million divided by 6 is 59 million. Let's round and say 60. So 60, I got my calculator if that's what you guys are wondering what I have. So 60 times 50 is 3,000, or yeah, that would be, what's 3,000 millions? I think that's 3 billion, which is a substantial amount, and that's annually, guys. So that's assuming that if 60 million is made per state, and that, oh no, per state per quarter. So that's 3 billion per quarter per state. And that's a pretty hefty amount. Let's dive a little bit into that number real quick. I like doing quick math. I know a lot of you guys do. So 6 million, or no, 60 million times 50 states is 3 billion. 3 billion times 4 quarters in a year equals 12 billion. So those are rough numbers per year, $12 billion in tax revenue. And you can see yet marijuana is now legal for adult use in 10 states and the District of Columbia, and 33 states have legalized medical marijuana in some form. So the problems to be solved, thousands of Americans, many of them minorities, are in jail for nonviolent. Yeah, I think that is completely reasonable. That is out of control. I have a whole nother stance on the ridiculousness behind that, people being locked up for nonviolent crimes. Unregulated marijuana leads to safety issues, lack of oversight. I do agree with this, but there is a flip side to the overregulation of it. So, for example, in California, when I was living in San Francisco, there was a large amount of mom and pop growers, and this was pre recreational use, or often referred to as rec, so pre-rec. And what happened was overnight, when it became recreational on January 1st, what happened was all of the mom and pop growers, they got shut down. They got quickly snuffed out because they needed to funnel through a organic process to say no pesticides have been used in this. You guys are growing this on, the side of your house, 100 plants at total, I believe was the law before that, where everybody had the ability to grow 100. And then they came in and said, all right, everyone has to go through our process as a state, which I completely agree with. I completely agree that there needs to be safety measures put in. Nobody should be using any like stupid pesticides to be growing this stuff. So they came in and shut down a lot of mom and pops that were supplying the dispensaries back then. And they started going through a very rigorous process to legally supply recreational usage. And that's for protecting consumers. 100% agree about that point. Um, and I agree that it is, if it's unregulated, it is dangerous for people if mom and pops are growing it and adding a little bit of angel dust in there, spice things up a bit, get their customers coming back. I think that's a dangerous thing, and regulating that, at least having a process to make sure it's organic and it's actually coming from where it said it's coming from, is key. So, federal treatment of marijuana is unclear as it remains as a controlled substance law. All right. So, next piece here is I wanted to talk about the gray areas in different states. So this one is a fun topic for me because the state that I'm currently in, Florida, which is fantastic, it's my Hawaiian shirt here. There are a really interesting set of laws around guns here, and I'm not, making any statements about guns or gun laws. Not jumping down that rabbit hole, no chance. So there is a concealed carry clause um, in the law here in Florida, and the person who actually told me about this was actually referred to Florida as the gunshine state, not the sunshine state. Fun little snippet. But there is a clause that says when you have a concealed carry, which if the state of Florida is very passionate about gun laws, they said that if you do have a concealed carry, you cannot be addicted to any illegal substances. And there's a big gray area here where if it's illegal at the federal level, and they are gradually making medicinal marijuana legal here in Florida. I believe it already is and has been legal for a little over a couple of years now, maybe 2 years. Um, don't quote me on that, but it is legal medicinally here, and that is the gray area, ladies and gentlemen, where you have someone who has a federally viewed addiction to an illegal drug, but they are state level approved to be using medicinal marijuana. And they have a concealed carry, and they also have this need to have a prescription so for medicinal marijuana. And that's where we run into this interesting gray area in this state. And I just learned about that a couple of weeks ago. I was pretty excited to learn something new and share it with you guys. But on that note, we're going to go over what is, I mentioned before, 0.0 or 0.3% THC and below is considered what we call hemp. And cannabis is the overarching umbrella that marijuana and hemp sit under. And you have 0.03% really differentiating the two. So umbrella cannabis, marijuana, hemp, 0.3% is what is going to differentiate the two between THC, which is the hallucinogen, or not hallucinogen, the psychedelic piece to THC. And let's go into the hemp bit because I've heard some crazy numbers around what it means to actually be farming hemp, which means, once again, under the umbrella on the left hand side or right hand side, whichever side you want to put it on, is the 0.03 or less THC. So it's used for CBD oil. And that is what we are going to look at here. And we don't apply the same growth techniques as medical marijuana. Sales manager at Moses Lake Washington based Hemp Logic. And where was the segment that I wanted to show you guys? All right. I'm going to scroll up to the graphs real quick just for nice little imagery here. So top 10 hemp states in 2018, last year. Number 1, Montana with 22,000 plants. Oh no, acres. So that's acres there on the top. Let me blow this up for you guys. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh wait, I can make it full screen? No, I can't. All right, there we go. So Montana, 22,000 acres dedicated to hemp. And number 2, Colorado, 21,500. That would make sense. Oregon, 7,800. Kentucky, 6,700. Tennessee, 3,300. And we go down all the way to Peeps in Wisconsin with 1,800. And plants per acre here, the number of states growing hemp increased from 15 in 2016 to 24 in 2018, with 41 states enacting hemp legislation, up 204% from 2017. Wow. So that is wild. 78,000, if you guys can see that there, 78,000 acres are now committed and growing hemp, which, as we said before, is not including a higher percentage of THC than 0.0 or 0.3. And that is a wild, wild differentiator there that they are that's a big gap and a growth rate of over 200% in the past, was that 2 years? And I'm sure everyone watching this has seen the explosion of CBD oil everywhere, and they are seeing that there is this movement taking place of CBD and people having a lot of really great effects from it. And that's kind of on the edge of what we're talking about here. And it's not because I'm saying that because when we talk about legalizing marijuana, we're talking about the 0.3 and above in THC. The actual marijuana that has the THC in it above that certain percentage, and then below that is already legal. Basically, the FDA approved um, for pretty much all across the United States. I don't want to go into the exact details of that, but um, Washington, as of late March, does not allow CBD production, a major factor limiting participation, but state Senate will legislate will allow it. California passed a hemp farming law, but is still writing regulation that will allow farmers in the state to grow the crop. Idaho lacks any hemp program. Oregon registers growers, handlers, buyers of end use CBD oil that goes into their products do not need a handler registration. Here we go. Revenue and costs. Let's blow this up for you guys here, because this is the bit that gets interesting. Wilson said he and his son generated about $112,000 per acre in revenue growing for the CBD market last year. So let's just for a quick second, when you think about farmers growing, um, there's a lot of cool technology that's going into farm tech, and there's a lot of cool stuff going on in farm tech. But when you look at these figures here, uh, that assuming you got 10 acres, that's $1 million in gross revenue. So the idea that a farmer is going to have 10 acres. Obviously, they're not going to have 10 acres. They're going to have more than that. But let's keep going on. He said a good crop produces about 2,000 pounds of hemp flower per acre for CBD extraction. It takes about 40 pounds of flower to make a kilogram of CBD oil. That comes to about 50 kilos of CBD oil per acre. They split that with the processor and sold their 25 kilos for $4,500 a piece. That's a little more than $2,000 a pound, or 125 for an ounce of oil, a price that was holding as of early this year. CBD is by far the highest value product. He Wilson said he expects the price to drop as acreage increases around the U.S. Yep. This is just a pure supply and demand piece here. Early days, obviously, now you can see that it went up 200% in acreage. So you have acreage on one side, you have price per acreage that these people are making in the early days because they're the early adopters. And as the acreage increases, you're going to see the amount being produced per acre decrease, which is just a basic economic perspective on this. And it's a beautiful perspective because just basic supply is increasing 200% of this acreage using hemp or growing hemp year over year. Then you're going to see, the price is going to go down that these people are making individually, but really impressive. I mean, that is crazy to think about, guys. I mean, when you think about something that is not necessarily a drug, like it's not making anyone hallucinate, it's not making anyone have this like psychedelic feeling because it has less than a percent of THC in it. um, it's just crazy to think about. I really admire these people for running full speed ahead into this space. And the people that are in the first 100,000 acres of this that are making 100 grand per acre, that's impressive, guys. Like those are real numbers. That's some real raw data. And if you have questions about this actual source, it is capitalpress.com. Pretty good source. I mean, I came up first on SEO. So if it's not too good, if you guys check it out, blame Google. Don't blame me. I just looked it up. But that's what I'm here for. Looking things up on Google. But yeah, that's my spiel about the legalization of it. And Andrew Yang was the candidate who has it on his website. There is another candidate that I wanted to look up. Joe Biden. Let's go ahead and Google Joe Biden here. And this is by Rolling Stone. Kamala, she said that she praises Illinois for legalizing it because if you guys aren't familiar or watching the news about Illinois, they just legalized it, I believe, recreational. So this is the controversial guy in the election. A lot of older the older generation enjoys Joe Biden. I think he's a little bit on the older side as far as being in touch with the younger generations. What we're doing, and I know that a lot of people feel the same way about that. I don't want to bash him. I like him. He did a great job in the previous presidency, put a lot of things into action, but at the same time, he doesn't like medical marijuana. And I I want to just run through why, um, and just compare and contrast that on your own with what I showed you before with Andrew Yang and Biden. So here we go. One group in particular has been vocal about its dissatisfaction with Biden as a candidate: marijuana legalization advocates. In a statement sent to Rolling Stone, Eric Alteria, the executive director of Marijuana Reform Organization, that looks like normal, nice, criticized Biden for his abysmal record when it comes to marijuana law reform, ending our failed war on drugs and addressing mass incarceration. Biden's views are far out of step with the American public, and he holds the worst record on cannabis related policy of any individual currently running for the Democratic and Republican nomination. So, this is definitely something that you guys can check out. I'm not going to go too much more into this, but I will say that Joe Biden is anti marijuana. There are a couple of other candidates running in 2020 that are interested in legalizing, like Kamala, but um, really, really rough around saying that it's a gateway drug. That's just something that was like, it feels like it's from the 80s when someone says that, and they aren't quite realizing that there's so many different applications of it now that when you have that umbrella I was talking about before with cannabis and then marijuana and hemp are sitting underneath that, it's really unfortunate that he can't quite see that there's like a bifurcation that's taking place within the structure of cannabis. So as early as 1974, the then 31-year-old senator was making a case for his career-long brand as a dyed-in-the-wool centrist, claiming that when it comes, So this is something that you guys can jump onto. It's on Rolling Stone as a source, but I just, yeah, I'm too much of the belief that it is an extreme benefit to legalize it. um, every state for recreational use, not only um, not only for the tax revenue, but just for businesses to start. Because I know people that are in the CBD space now that are crushing it, making amazing products, helping people that need it. And it is a really exciting thing for entrepreneurship and starting businesses. So that's my spiel on legalizing marijuana. I've had a strong stance on this for a few years now. I know a lot of you guys that did send me the DMs about the last stream that I did about VATs, value added taxes. It's really interesting to go through policies. I know it's not the most exciting thing for everybody, but I do think that there's a lot of cool data that's backing up, some of these proposals that people are putting forward, and not necessarily just Andrew Yang. He's got 100 policies that he's proposing, but Kamala, Elizabeth Warren, Bernie, all those people, businesses are coming out of the woodwork and saying like, "Hey, it'd be great if we worked on legalizing medicinal everywhere and also pushing for the list." So there's a list that happens where right before a state goes legal, for example, in Illinois, there's a bunch of startups that sit right on the edge, waiting for it to be legalized in that state. And if you guys have ever driven across country through a few states that it's not legal, you'll see billboards like crazy all up and down the highway, like Texas, where it's saying like, "Hey, like the old got milk, they say got weed," and then there'd be like a lawyer that's just basically um, has billboards saying if you get pulled over and you have weed in your car or something like that, you're gonna get busted, and that lawyer can get you out of trouble. So yeah, I think that there's literally only upside to this. Feel free in the comments below on this video if you guys feel so compelled to talk about um, or leave me a DM. I think that's probably better than any sort of comments. But yeah, I'm definitely interested in seeing where this goes, especially in the business side of things, because CBD is exploding right now. It's everywhere, and people are really, really benefiting from it. So, would love to know your thoughts. Shoot me a DM, and that's it for this stream. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you love my quick math there with my calculator on my phone. And I always think about the teachers that told you that you weren't going to have a calculator ready, and ooh, missed the train on that one. But all right, that's it for this stream, and I will see you guys on the next one.